This is The Culture.
What's going on, guys? We are back for another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about David Fincher's highly anticipated film, The Killer, starring Michael Fassbender. I am one of your hosts today. I'm Zach Miller, and I'm joined by...
Liz.
Yeah.
It's me, everybody.
Holy shit, Liz is sitting across from me. This is a big moment for me. So thank you for talking about this, Liz. You know, I'm just really privileged that you got to come to the city, and
me too.
We got to go.
We had a very eventful time getting out of the city, but that we will talk about later.
Yes, if anyone wants to finish the video all the way just for that.
Yes, we'll give you a little bit of a you should wait till the end of the episode and hear about our story. But so Zach and I, we got to go to New York Film Festival. It was my first time actually going to New York Film Festival, so I was super excited. And we got to see the North America premiere of The Killer.
Yeah.
Zach, is this your first time at New York Film Festival?
Yeah, this was my first time as well. New York Film Festival has a lot of venues in the city, like all around, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
Because it was my first time too. And then with the SAG strike going on as well, there couldn't be a huge presence, but a lot of people still knew that and they went anyways. And there was a bunch of films at Lincoln Center. And this film was at the Paris Theater. It's about Midtown, like 58th, 59th. Mm-hmm. And apparently, according to our friend Brian, that theater is owned by Netflix. So they get to screen projects there.
It was a cool little theater.
Yeah, I liked it.
I did too. Cool. It was good.
They gave us, popcorn. They gave us drinks. They gave us Q magazines. I was like all up to date on the new stuff coming out. So that was really cool. We were hoping that Fincher would be there, but he was not.
You're always holding out, I feel like, at like a premiere that they just secretly sneak in there and are like, oh, hey, everybody. Especially because I feel like New York Film Festival, they had a lot of Q&As happening and a lot of well-known actors and directors kind of also going in, being an audience member at other films being shown. So I kind of was expecting at least somebody representing the film. But maybe they had something else going on, so they weren't there.
Yeah. I was definitely expecting, if it wasn't him, I don't know if he's just a guy that doesn't like to go in person and do Q&As. Maybe the case. So because I was thinking about it, there were so many directors, like Bradley Cooper didn't do anything promotional, but he attended the festival for Maestro. Sofia Coppola was there for Priscilla. Jonathan Glazer was there for Zone of Interest. I mean, those are just to name a few, but there were so many people that ended up going to that festival. So maybe he is just not a Q&A guy, but it didn't really defeat the purpose for a lot of people because it was a packed house. It was really cool because since it was such an exclusive premiere, they were like no phones, and there were literally ushers with night vision.
They had night vision goggles that they, in the middle of the film, are walking around just like looking through these, making sure that nobody was recording, I guess. Even though this is coming to Netflix November 10th, so I guess they really just don't want any spoilers going out there, which for anyone that's listening, we will not be spoiling anything for this film since it has not come out yet. So you can watch throughout the whole episode. We're not going to give anything away for this film. Because why spoil it?
We wouldn't do that to you guys too early. No. But yeah, so just getting right into it. Let's do it.
Let's start talking about it.
David Fincher has made a great body of work. I mean, his films include Seven, Fight Club, Zodiac, The Social Network. These are just to name a few. And this is his 12th film that he's done. And he just came off of Mank he did with Netflix in 2020. And that was the black and white period piece about the screenwriter who did Citizen Kane. Yeah. So that was way outside of his usual genre, but that was like something very personal to him that he was developing over the years. So it was nice to see him come back to the crime thriller that he's very famous for. Yeah. And what he's honestly really good at with his niche. And I was really happy that he got back to this. And then also Michael Fassbender. He was really good. And just seeing him in anything, like if he was in any movie, I would go to see it.
You'd go and see it.
Yeah.
He's like that actor for you that's like, I don't care what's happening, like gonna go check it out.
Yeah, like he's kind of like Denzel or like Christian Bale.
Ooh, okay.
Like he hasn't had probably the same tier of movies as them, but I think he always gives 100% in every role.
I feel like he's kind of that actor that people are like, oh yeah, him. Like I recognize him, but they don't always know his name. Because he's very he doesn't put himself out there, I feel like, at all.
No, I don't think he does either. And I was trying to explain to people like who was in the movie, and I was like, oh yeah, the guy who played Magneto in the old X-Men movies or like 10 years ago, and they were like, oh, that guy.
Yeah, okay.
I was trying to think of the most pop culture thing. And then instead of being like, oh yeah, he was in Macbeth, and, you know. But he was great in the movie. He plays this very stoic, very composed contract killer.
Yes.
And this information we're only giving because it's in the trailer.
Yeah. So you know the premise if you've read anything about this film at all. It's an interesting, it's definitely a suspenseful thriller, I would say. It has a very intense opening. How long would you say that opening sequence is? Like,
probably like 20 minutes.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe 15.
Yeah.
But I'd say between like 15, 20 minutes. It's very intense and throws you right into his world. They don't give a lot of backstory necessarily. They just kind of throw you in right away, which I like, because sometimes with thrillers, if they try to if you dip your toes in the beginning and you're just kind of like getting used to the storyline, sometimes you lose the audience right away.
Yeah. I was also going to ask you too, how many of Fincher's movies have you seen, or what are you maybe missing too? Like whichever way you want to phrase it.
How many have I seen? Okay, so I have not seen Mank because I heard it wasn't that popular, let's just say. And so I did not watch it.
That's fair. I mean, it's a longer movie.
I heard that people just weren't as excited about it. And so I was like, I have other things to watch.
Yeah.
And then I guess I'll do what I haven't seen. I haven't seen Zodiac, which that I know I need to watch that. I
think you would love Zodiac.
I do too.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the only other like mainstream one that I haven't seen.
Oh, definitely the main. Okay, definitely. So like this isn't this isn't a mainstream. But have you seen The Game with Michael Douglas?
The Game.
It's another.
Is that an older one, or is it like?
Yeah,
newer?
It's a 90s. I think it's like 90s.
Maybe
7.
I might have.
Like okay.
Maybe not though.
Sean Penn's in it. It's a couple.
Game. What is it about? Give me some premise.
So he is basically kidnapped, and he's trying to figure out who is doing this to him, and he's being like booby trapped, almost getting killed.
I have seen it.
You have?
Yes,
okay.
yes. Yeah. Like a while ago though.
Yeah.
So I probably should rewatch, but yes, I have seen it.
The only one that I haven't seen now, I think, is Panic Room.
Panic Room
you said
was
good.
Great. Yeah. It's really good. Young Kristen Stewart.
Yeah.
It's kind of just his MO film, like a very high intense thriller that keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time.
Yeah. I also think he has, to your point with like Kristen Stewart and then Jodie Foster's in that movie, he has a great diverse range of actors that are in his movies. You even have Jesse Eisenberg in Social Network. You have Andrew Garfield in that movie. He was just beginning to make his climb. And then in this movie you have Fassbender. Brad Pitt is his guy in the other two, Seven and Fight Club. Edward Norton's in Fight Club. There's a lot of actors that he has really utilized to their abilities, and then also really understands how to build his story through editing, through the performances, and then setting up a lot of this like gritty world. At least in most of his movies, he sets up crime and the world around the crime in a very dreary, underlit, like dark atmosphere. So it's
while
really cool.
Also though keeping his audience entertained and involved, because I feel like sometimes when you enter those worlds of crime, mystery, and suspense, sometimes it can get a little dull when you're trying to make the facts like true to life. Sometimes it's like, okay, I get it. Like, this is a crime scene. Okay, let's keep going with it. But I think he does a really nice job of keeping his audience engaged in the material.
Oh, yeah.
I want to know, though, Zach, what would you say is your favorite?
It's like the hardest question for me. Like DJ said, I was a Nolan stan. I am a Fincher stan.
Okay.
Like
top two. How about that? I feel like it's a little bit easier.
Man, I would. It's so close for me, but I think Fight Club, and not in the sense of how people worship that movie nowadays. Like I don't. Obviously, the material behind that is not to.
I know we've talked
put
about
on a pedestal.
We've talked about it, that there's some people that are like Fight Club stans. But then there's also some people that are like, of course Fight Club is your favorite film. Like how typical. And it's like, well, it is a good movie. It's a good movie.
It's a great movie. And that movie blew my doors off when the plot twist comes. And then also just the amount, like I was watching that for the first time. I was like, how many scenes are in this movie? How many shots are in this movie? Like how thorough do you have to be as a director to cover something that meticulous? Like that was just next level. And then it ushered in a lot of that grungy crime, along with Seven too. Like it did that 90s grungy era super well. And then it didn't overdo it with just like that movie is like a commentary on commercialization and like don't get stuck in your job. And then they take it to the extreme like chaos perspective. So I mean, and then you're like, this is just snowballing out of control. And then the plot twist happens. So I think that, but then I also think about a movie like Social Network. Totally different movie. Like that movie on paper should not be as entertaining as it is.
Yes, I agree.
But it's so good and it's so enthralling because, I mean, you have Aaron Sorkin behind the keyboard and then you have great performances. And then I also think that the only reason, like if David Fincher did not do that movie, a lot of other people could have butchered it. You know? Like
that. So I was going to ask you, do you think was so successful because of the performances or because of his direction? Obviously, I think
both of them go hand in hand too. Yeah, I think that he gave that movie a pulse with his creative style. You know, like I think if like Adam McKay or like what's another like biopic director, I can't really think about it, but if someone just took it as like, oh, this happened, or like even so like Dumb Money, for example, doesn't have the same pulse as Social Network, but yet it's about social media and the problems. Like that is one specific story of it and Wall Street, but Social Network is really about this guy's obsession with what is he willing to do to get what he wants. And then he pushes everyone out. The drama behind the burning of his relationships is what keeps us so engaged. And then because like to what you're saying with Adam McKay, I feel like comes at things with a little bit more of a comedic or even like satirical point of view, while I feel like Fincher, he really rarely does. He doesn't lean toward comedy. I feel like he just says things straight as they are. And if the audience happens to find that comedic, then great. But if they don't, he's not worried about it. He's not trying to make the audience laugh. He's more trying to make them think and then also make them feel like they just experienced something through his films. Yeah. And even with Zodiac, like you haven't seen Zodiac, but it follows for a lot of the movie, Robert Graysmith, who's a journalist studying Zodiac killings in San Francisco. And a lot of the movie focuses on his obsession with trying to find the problems. And he's really trying to solve the case himself. Like he is so invested that he's ignoring his girlfriend around him. He's ignoring a lot of his job responsibilities. Like he is so I have to solve this. Like, I know I can solve this. And suddenly that becomes equally as interesting as the killings. And it's like documenting the killings and the murders, as well as feeding into, like, you know, this might not ever get solved. You have to give up. Like, you have to give up this obsession. So it's interesting what he can incorporate into real historical pieces like that. So, and then you have The Killer, which, going off of what we were just saying, I felt like this was a straightforward movie. Like,
I agree.
Let me know what you think about that.
No, I definitely agree. I think when we left, we were talking about it briefly, but I think this was a very simple plot. Again, we're not going to talk about plot points, but overall, going into it, just from what I had seen from the trailer, I also like try not to watch trailers fully through because I don't want anything to be spoiled. So I had only watched half of it. But going into this film, I walked out with the film that I expected to see. It was very well done. I feel editing, even sound, it was really well done. Yeah. But nothing major surprising. Like, I wasn't completely shocked. I had gone in with high expectations, knowing that he was coming back to kind of his sweet spot. And so I was looking forward to seeing something that he knows how to do and does it well. I wouldn't say I was blown away, but I was definitely entertained, and I would recommend this film to a lot of people. I think it's going to do, I think a lot of people are just going to enjoy it because there was never a dull moment, which is something to say, because the opening scene, like I just said before, was very suspenseful and threw you in right away. And I think that's hard for suspense films, to keep the audience feeling that pressure throughout. It's hard to sustain suspense, and I think he did it really nicely in this film. Yeah,
I think he really hinged on the tension and the anticipation that is coming for this killer's jobs. Like, and you know, what if this happens, what will follow after this, you know, like, because he goes through this process of like, you can tell he has a history of doing these acts. Like, you can tell that there are situations where he's a vet to these experiences. So if this happens, like, what, like, without giving away too much information,
I know,
but
if
this happened, how is he going to react to this situation?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And again, this isn't a spoiler, but he does a really nice job of making you feel like he's kind of going out of control, this character, a little bit. But then you're also questioning, is he going out of control, or is it just his job as a contract killer that makes us feel like he's going out of control? But really, maybe he's just very good at his job. Yeah.
Oh, and then another big thing that tells us about the psychosis of him and his, whether he's hinged or unhinged, is the narration throughout the film.
I loved it.
Which we were completely caught off guard with, because it has... it goes back to a little bit of Fight Club with this dark humor style and approach. And you're just like, whoa, like that. Cause you're so fixated on the serious nature of the scenes laid out. Then you're like, wait a minute, he just said something hilarious.
I know,
like,
but very dry. Like, all of his delivery was almost the same tone throughout. It gave me very much American Psycho vibes. A little bit. But it was really nice, because I think that also opened up the audience to a whole other side of, like, a killer's point of view. Is that throughout the whole film, you're also seeing you're hearing why he's doing these things, and hearing his thoughts as he's going through these events. So it's really nice, because rather than just us having to speculate, like, oh, why is he doing that? We're in his head. And it's not, all of his commentary isn't straightforward. It's very nuanced and is done almost just by making, like, kind of random comments about things. That can either, some of them are very funny. I actually think this is one of his funnier scripts.
In a weird way.
In a very weird way. Like, almost a dark humor, very bland, straightforward commentary. I liked it. I thought it was very well done.
And like, when he would make a lot of these statements, it showed that other side to him, that he is an observer. Like, and that is the biggest part of this contract killer is he has to observe people and observe situations. So but then he inserts those quips of like, you know, oh, this guy again.
I know.
Or like, oh, look at that. Like, I didn't expect that to happen.
I didn't either. Or like he makes comments on just society today. Like this isn't even, this won't ruin anything, but he'll make comments about like Postmates or like Amazon Prime, like being able to order something the next day. And it just is really funny because I think these like killer movies, they never enter the real world in a way. It's always this darker,
like overdone psychopath.
Who lives in the darkness and like doesn't come out. And this, Fincher did a really nice job of bringing like a killer into the real world and making him a real person and not just this entity that is in a film.
Yeah, he made it like a literal profession where he's like, I'm going to work today. These things happen at work today. I didn't really love that.
Didn't love my day at work. But Gonna go back tomorrow.
I noticed this thing. The bullet didn't hit the right way. Like that kind of. So he makes like jokes and satire based off of. Like that is just such an interesting juxtaposition for me. Like I'd have to really sit down and wonder how many films have done the same thing without being a comedy movie. Like this is a thriller crime drama, like with comedic elements.
Yes.
Kind of like how similar to Social Network too. It is a drama first, and then they have these funny moments where you're like, oh man, he said that about this person. And then that was like those funny moments, but it's not a comedy.
No, like I think, for example, if Fincher was there in the audience and somebody missed a joke and they didn't laugh, I don't think he was going to be brokenhearted about that. I think he'll be like, okay, no, they're into the story and they're not getting the humor of it, but that's okay because he's not trying to tell a humorous story. So I appreciated it. And then one thing we had also mentioned is that there was so much voiceover happening that there were moments that like I'm going to rewatch this film, which I don't always say about typical killer suspense thrillers, because once I see it, it's like, okay, I know what happened. Like the curtain was revealed, so I don't really want to rewatch it. But I would rewatch this film specifically to re-listen to what he's saying, because there were some times that I was so enthralled with what visually was happening that I forgot to really take in what he verbally was saying. Yeah, I think that's a great point, because you're also just like how you would just see this crazy thing just happened and then he would say something, but you're still in your head processing what
the
happened.
Violence. And then you're like, wait a minute, he just made a joke about that. And then like there were several moments like you too. I'm going to go back, and then I was even thinking like maybe I'll read the script at some point.
That would be good.
And then be like, oh wow, that was really funny.
It's funny.
So, but he's such a good master at meticulously planning his characters, his worlds. But also to go hand in hand with that, he's also very notorious for doing multiple takes, and by multiple takes, I mean like sometimes 80 takes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Or 200 takes.
Crazy.
Yeah, like for Amanda Seyfried, Seyfried, I think I'm saying it wrong. She did what was rumored to be 200 plus takes in Mank. I would go crazy if that happened.
I honestly can't imagine that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I understand that some people really want to get coverage of every possible take. But I think at a certain point, you're just getting like it's going to be regurgitated moments. And then also I feel like actors then aren't giving their best work because they just want to get done. Yeah. I mean, if that's what you're wanting from the character, though, the attitude of just wanting to leave and be done with something, then great, that works. But that can't be it for every scene and every actor.
Yeah. And then when I was doing a little more research on that, I found a quote that he said, and he said that I hate earnestness in performances. Usually by take 17, the earnestness is gone. So to me,
how do you take that? Yeah, like what do you think he means by earnestness? Like,
look, so here's my thing. I appreciate the guy. I think he's a master at getting the best product at the end of the day. But the whole point of acting, to at least a lot of people, is earnestness and understanding and emotionally transmitting that out. And some scenes are way more difficult than others to get out several times. So when you're even on take 10, and if it's like a heavy scene, that's going to be very challenging and daunting for an actor. And those will probably be their best moments, because then you just get exhausted too. There's also, maybe you do want to do it 200 times, but you get exhausted doing it. Maybe you can meet his needs, but when you're going that deep, it's like, how is that's defeating the purpose to me, you know?
And especially there's different types of approaches to acting. And I feel like a lot of actors, they don't like to just go in blind. They like to do multiple tests, one where they can just wing it, one where they know exactly what they're doing, and then one where they can talk with the director a little bit more about carving out what they're looking for. I feel like if you were just blindly doing 200 takes, I would get so frustrated, because I'd be like, just give me direction at this point. Don't just throw me in and keep doing take after take after take. Like, what specifically are you looking for? And in my opinion, if the director doesn't know what they're looking for, like,
it feels that way, because you're getting 200, like maybe there's some takes where you have to move some objects on the desk, or maybe you have to go pick something up. But when you imagine it, like, obviously we haven't done productions that big, but to just understandably like block a scene out, I can't imagine those moments taking more than 10 takes. Or like just those little additions. Like if I feel like most directors would run through it how it's written, maybe give another couple takes for the actor to try something out. And then you also add room for takes that might technically like misfocus or something else goes wrong. Maybe that happens. So then, like, even that's a generous 30 takes, which doesn't happen often.
But can you imagine getting in that editing room and having 200 takes of just one scene? What do you do? Like, do you start going through it like an Instagram story, just like clicking through, like, nope, don't like that, don't like that, don't like that. Like, how do you get through all of those?
And then the script supervisor was writing down, this was a good take. This was a good take. This was a good take. Flowers in the background. This was a good take. This is a good, like what are the changes that you like? And then is he gonna go into the editing room and be like, oh yeah, on take 137 we had this, so I want that one. Like, no, you're not.
No, you're not.
You're not. They're not doing that. So
no, they're probably taking multiple takes and cutting them together, and then it's like, I don't know.
And there's been actors that have had problems with that on his set, like Jake Gyllenhaal and Rooney Mara. They're pretty outspoken about that, and they've had some gripes with not working with him in the future because of those moments. And you know, it is a collaborative medium. If the shoe doesn't fit for you anymore, maybe you should move on, and I respect them for that. And like I said, like Fincher, he's put out great movies. Like, I can't knock the guy on his quality output. It's just hard to imagine that it took that much.
I know. I mean, some people might love it though. Some people, I know some actors approach it as every take is really a new opportunity. And so if he gets those types of actors, then he has his team and he should run with it. But I honestly, a part of me wants to watch Mank just to figure out like which scene it was. Like, do they say, I wonder if they say which scene it was that she had to do 200 times.
I have to look into it.
I will too.
And off the top of my head, there's a couple scenes with her. They're having like this massive party and it's in this castle, and she's in costume, and I think she's doing some type of getting on the table, and I don't know, maybe it could be that season. Like, I don't even know. I'd have to look into it, but I know that there's a couple scenes where I can imagine doing that 200 times would be a headache. So and no matter what the scene too, that just seems absurd to me. Like, how do you feel comfortable with, and how do you make your days? You're shooting a whole movie.
Well, that's the thing. Like, what is he doing? Like a scene a day? Not even like a half a scene a day at that point? It's crazy. I wonder how many shots he did for the killer. I've listened to don't even take it from us guys. I've listened to Roger Deakins' podcast. He is the cinematographer of all time. He is the guy. And he's even like,
he'll try different things with the director or blocking and do all this and stuff. But if he's getting like, let's go again for no reason, he gets frustrated too.
Well, yeah, because it's like communication at the end of it, because it is a collaboration and you don't want to make people feel like you're wasting their time.
Yeah.
You have to communicate. And if you really don't know what you're looking for, but you're looking for something that you haven't achieved yet, say that to people and say, I don't know what it is, but I haven't gotten it yet. Because maybe somebody else is feeling that way. I mean, I don't know if he communicates very well, but just from saying 200 takes, it makes it seem like he keeps everything to himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just makes it a little bit more curious of like, how do you actually get to that number without having a group meeting really quickly?
Right.
Like this isn't working.
Yeah. And where do you end it? So it's because you get that far. I know Stanley Kubrick was rumored to be like that too. Yeah. And The Shining, he like wore down Shelley Duvall.
Oh my God. I
mean, emotionally too.
I mean, that's one of my favorite movies, but like.
I mean, and exactly. It's a great movie. And his filmography is also really deep and great. But I mean, and then back then you're shooting on actual film. So it's a challenge. But moving on to some of the rest of the movie, there's one scene that we were really impressed by, and that's the fight scene. Yeah, there's a really great fight scene in it. It's just a really great, well executed fight scene. I feel like all of us, the whole audience was just like, ooh, like actually making like verbal responses to it. It was also pretty long. It went longer than I expected it to go. Yeah, which was impressive because sometimes when film fight scenes get a little bit more extended, they kind of can get a little bit unrealistic. Yes, in my opinion. But this one, even though it was on the longer end, it sustained realism throughout it, and they both really looked beat up. Oh yeah, they looked wrecked. I think it was one of the most realistic fight scenes I've seen recently. Like, and there's a lot of action movies that have come out, but there was nothing cheesy about it. The choreography was great. The whole house got trashed. It looked messy. Yeah, it looked like people, because sometimes stage fight scenes can just look very like, oh wow, somebody told them how to punch each other correctly, or you're punching a hole in a concrete wall. Yeah, and it's like that. Your arm would fall off at that point. But this, it was really well done because it showed that they were both just like fighting for their lives, while also not being professional fighters. Yeah, which is nice to see. I also think that it showcased how the killer's planning was like his savviness and his intelligence was all there. Like he was planning out what to do to get from A to B, to go from this store to this store. Yeah. He's like clearing rooms. Like he's obviously been around the block with his killings. So you understand he's coming to this fight pretty prepared, but then he gets a couple obstacles. So without saying much more about that, it was a very good scene. It was really good. Do you think, I'm curious, could you see anybody else playing this role, or do you think Fassbender was just the main, like he blew it out of the water? I think a lot of people could have played this role. I think that Fassbender is really good at internally processing a lot of stuff just with his eyes. Like I could even see Tom Hardy's great at that. There's a couple other people like James McAvoy's pretty good. Okay. Like some other people that you could have seen maybe doing it. Like Daniel Craig just came out of the Bond movies. Like he could have potentially done something like this too. Yeah, I kind of liked, though, I feel like Daniel Craig is a little bit too much of a household face now. That's true. Where when you see him, like, I don't know, right now, just because I think of Knives Out with him now, and so I see him in that image. I feel like Fassbender, he hasn't done anything for quite a little bit of time. He brings a great intensity to his roles. Yeah, he just, I know in Macbeth, I mean, like, that's any dream for an actor is to play Shakespeare on screen in that light. And he was great in that, but he brings this intensity with him in every role, and especially just seeing the pain in his eyes. Like, even though it's not the best series of movies in X-Men, he is probably the best part of those movies, because he you can see all of the pain that he has to go through, the conflict with his relationship with McAvoy, and how he's always trying to pick a side. And then this movie too, you feel this, he's a very cold guy, but you feel empathy for him because he's witty, he's like very smart, and then other things happen in the film where you do empathize with him.
I agree. I thought that was a really good element that they brought into it, because sometimes in these thriller movies, you don't really care about the person who's doing some of the bad stuff. You're kind of like, okay, whatever happens. But I felt like the audience was on his side throughout it all, which is really nice.
Yeah. And he's a great actor. I really wish he would get more roles more often. He I think he'll have an Oscar winning role at some point in the future. I'm surprised he hasn't won one already. I still need to see that movie Shame, but there's a lot of great clips I've seen of him just emotionally laying it out there. Like, just some of the best work in the last 10, 15 years. And also, I personally, he's been my pick for the next James Bond, because I think he could be very charming, and he has the look, he has that intensity, and I could see him. This movie was like, if he doesn't get a James Bond movie, this would be it for him.
Okay.
So
hot take from Zach.
Yeah.
Pitching the next James Bond.
Yeah. I would love that, but that's another thing, another rabbit in the hat. But so this movie also premieres on Netflix November 10th. So
it's coming out. Netflix obviously owns the rights to it, which I'm curious. So it has a pretty high rating on Rotten Tomatoes right now. It's actually 82%. Do you think it being a Netflix film is gonna benefit it, or is it going to kind of get swallowed in the whole of Netflix films? Do you think?
I think it's going to get swallowed in the whole of this year.
Okay.
I think it's like, there's so many good movies.
I know. There's also just so much coming out every week, especially on Netflix, that it might be one of those action films that it's there in the top 10 for the first week, and then all of a sudden it disappears.
Yeah. I think it'll do really well. Yeah. And it's also a movie I don't know if people are going to see in theaters if it gets a limited release.
I don't think it's scheduled to.
Yeah, I didn't see anything about it yet either.
No, I think they're pushing it right out onto Netflix. I'll be honest, I didn't love the ending. I was a little bit let down by it, so I think maybe that's why they might not do the theatrical limited release, just because, like, if this goes out on Netflix and it gets a lot of hype, people will be like, wow, what a great movie. Ending wasn't the best, but like, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Versus if I think people go to the theater and spend money on it, I think it'll go down a little bit based on the ending.
Yeah, I think, like, to your point with the ending, there was a great build up to this climax. He has to go through all these hurdles to get there, and it just kind of missed that one last punch that was going to drive it all home. So I think once people watch it, they might know what we're talking about.
It's good. I mean, okay, so I think what it is if this wasn't a Fincher film, people would be like, wow, really great.
That's a good point.
Incredible.
Yeah.
But I think because it's a Fincher film and he always has these great twists, I was expecting for a twist to come, and there wasn't really that big of a twist. It was kind of like cut and dry, just
resolution.
Yes.
Yeah, and then there was even the one chapter called Epilogue.
Yes, which, I mean, it's again, it's not a bad ending. It just wasn't as satisfying as some of his other films have been.
Right.
So not bad, just I kind of expected more with it being attached to his name.
Yeah, there's a lot of his films you're contemplating things right at the end. Like Seven, you're just like, oh my gosh, how did this just happen?
Yeah, you're like sitting there as the credits roll, and you're like, wait, what?
You're like, I've lost hope in humanity.
Yeah,
and
literally.
Then Fight Club comes, and you're like, holy, like, whoa, the anarchy just won. And then you have Social Network. You're like, greed just won out. Like, this sucks for this guy. This was messed up. Like you're thinking about all these things that you're just left with questions. You're left with the conversation afterwards.
Yeah.
This one was, because it was so straightforward, it wasn't necessarily something that challenged our expectations of what was like controversial or like
unless I missed it, like, again, because there was so much voiceover happening, like maybe I missed a phrase that he said at the end.
To me, it felt like a little bit of an episode of Ozark, or like...
So I have not seen Ozark.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that reference.
Gotcha. Well, so basically, and why I say that is because it felt like a straightforward episode of that show where someone kills somebody, there are consequences for that, and then there's a resolution a few episodes later. Like, that's it felt like that straightforward. It was like, okay, A, B, C, D, conclusion. Like, that happened. And then it's like, okay, moving on. And then, like, Ozark, they have a couple crazy plot twists in the seasons, like different parts. But it felt like a straight narrative. Like, if you were to draw Fight Club out on a chalkboard, you would be going through a maze.
Yeah.
If you were to draw 7 out of the chalkboard, you'd probably be like, okay, oh man, this is a roller coaster. It's going up and down. It's going up and down. And then the end is like, oh boy. And this one is just like, oh shit.
Like dot to dot to
oh,
dot.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
And then the ending is like, oh. You're just like, oh, all right.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I mean, again, it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's just I had a little bit more high expectations for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, to each their own. Maybe some people really loved how it ended.
It was by no means a bad movie.
No.
Like, it was a well executed movie.
Yeah, it almost feels like he heard that people didn't love Mank, and so he was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go back to my OG roots.
It's possible.
And give you guys what you wanted and make it as simple as possible, but make it fire and make it really good. Yeah. And by that, he was like, I'm not going to think too much on the ending. I'm going to end it. I'm going to end the movie for you guys. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and then I also wanted to wrap up. I wanted to talk about our own ending of the night.
Yes, everybody.
Because, okay, so we really wanted to give you guys
wait.
content.
Actually, before we get into this, Zach, I do want to, let's close out the killer. Let's close out the film.
Okay, you have more to talk about it.
No. What would you rate it? What is your rating for the killer?
I would give it like an 8.5.
Okay.
8
okay.
range. Yeah.
I was gonna do solid 8.
Okay. I'm not gonna argue that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also like what you got from the experience. So, and then I felt the same way though. Like I honestly think we were kind of the same on that wavelength of what we got from it. And to put it in the rest of his body of work, I think it runs like middle of the pack.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think honestly, now that I'm like thinking on his body of work, I'd put it on the same level maybe as Panic Room, but I think for the time Panic Room was a bigger deal.
Okay.
Because it was earlier on in his career.
Gotcha.
So those two, I would probably put them on the same level. Yeah. But yeah, good movie. I mean, I recommend it. Go. I think you should watch it on Netflix. I hope, because we watched it in theater, we all felt very suspenseful. I hope that suspense is able to be felt through your TV or your computer at home.
Yeah.
I hope that lives up to it. But yeah, I liked The Killer. I did not love our experience leaving the theater though, everyone. Yeah. What a transition.
I know.
So Zach, why don't you go now and give a little story?
So let's paint the scene.
Please do.
Let's paint the scene. All right. It is a rainy night in New York City. Me and Liz are on the subway. Well, okay, so we're leaving. We're with our two friends.
Yes.
Who went to see it.
We just left the premiere.
Just left it. We're like, okay, we're going to catch the train. We're going to catch the subway. We're going to go to our train. So we are leaving rainy New York City theater, and we see the Plaza on our left. Me and Liz were just recounting.
Plaza Hotel. Shout out
Bride
Wars.
Yes.
Shout out Bride Wars.
It's the same movie as this, obviously, with Anne Hathaway talking about her wedding. It's the same movie. So, so we were fangirling over that, and then we get on the train, and I'm gonna blame this on Brian.
We just are all kind of just talking about the film, and then we just go.
I'm gonna blame Brian anyways.
Blame Brian. Go for it. Throw him under the bus.
So we go on the train, and I saw on the side of the train it said Astoria, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's in Queens. And before we got to the theater, before the movie, I was like, Liz, it's crazy how in New York you could just end up on a subway and go somewhere else.
Literally were we were literally saying that to each other. Like, it's crazy. You just get on a bus and then all of a sudden you're in the Bronx or something. We were like,
oh, it's nuts. And then I'm like sitting on the subway, and I felt like we were on between stops a little bit longer than we should have.
Than we should have been.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh no. So I go look at the map, and then I go look at the stop that we get off of. I'm like, Liz, we're in Queens. And then we tell Brian and his friend, we were like, oh, we messed up.
We messed up. We gotta go. Yeah, we gotta get off.
So Brian was like, oh, okay. So we get off, waited for another subway for a bit. We were like, okay, we're barely going to make our train back to Jersey.
Yeah, I'm watching the clock. We kind of know at this point. We're like, okay, it's going to be tight. So we get on the right subway. We get off the subway. Our train leaves at 10:07.
Yes.
It is 10:01. And we still have to walk 3 blocks?
Yeah, from the Herald Square.
So we start walking. We each are. I see all of us just checking our phones, and we're like, I think we might be missing this one, but let's see. So we keep walking. We're not running. We're not trying.
If we miss it, we
get a drink. Whatever. So we go to NJ Transit. We go to NJ Transit. Delayed. Wow.
From 3 different train lines.
First of all, what a gift. Here we are thinking we're late and that we're going to miss the train. No, it's delayed.
Yeah, we're like, we got time.
This is beautiful. Now we'll be able to get the 10:07 train. All of a sudden, it's another delay. And then another delay. And then another delay. And then 25 minutes has passed by.
Yes.
And then we see that one of the train lines is like, we are taking NJ Transit tickets on the path going to Hoboken.
So they were encouraging people to go from MSG all the way into Hoboken to maybe catch a connecting train.
To Newark.
We were like, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, and so Zach and I at this point are like, I don't think we're catching a train.
Yeah.
I think we need to go and follow and go to the path and get to Hoboken.
Yeah.
Everybody is going.
Everyone had the same idea.
Everyone had the same idea as us, because at this point, that's the only way to get out of New York, unless you want to unless you want to go on the bus, or pay for an Uber, which, I mean, who pays for an Uber to get out of the city? Let's be real. And so, I mean, if you do, good for you.
Yeah, if you know New York, you would not.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Yeah. But so then the path is the busiest I've ever seen it. Usually the path, nobody's there. You can get a seat on it. Oh my God. It's like packed sardines. You're pushing to get on. People, it's chaos. So we get on the path. We're making our way to Hoboken. Shoulder to shoulder, like sweat to sweat, feeling the breath of the people behind me. We finally get to Hoboken. Not a lot of people get off either, which was weird.
Yeah.
I thought more people were going to get off, but they all stayed on. We get in the Uber. We all think that, okay, we are golden. We're just going to go. We're going to get the Uber. We're going to go home. It'll be a great night. No. We get in the Uber. We drive for maybe like 20 minutes. No, 30. We're almost there. We're like 5
minutes from our parking lot.
From where we need to be. And then all of a sudden we pull up to a train that is like a train
stopped on the railroad crossing.
And there's a line of cars. And so we're like, whatever, it'll pass very quickly. No. The train is going forward and then backwards.
And she threw it in reverse.
And it just keeps going back and forth. So like it's not moving at all.
There's no way, right?
And we just keep thinking, we're like, what is going on with this? And we wait and wait and wait. And then I get a text from Uber being like, you guys haven't moved in a while. Are you okay? I'm like, oh my God. So we all, it was just too much. And we're like, what is up with these trains tonight? Like, we can't get home.
It was unbelievable.
It was actually unbelievable.
We had to GPS our Uber driver so she couldn't abort the whole thing.
Yeah, because I don't know. I guess on Uber you can't go a different way.
Cancel it while they're in the car or something.
I don't know.
Whatever it was, but we figured it out for her.
She started flying.
Yeah, she was flying.
She was like, let's do this. Let's go the back roads, people. And then we get there and we survived.
But
I was something that should have taken us like 45 minutes to get home took us 3 hours.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. Yeah. Oh, and then I drove 40 minutes home.
And then you drove the 45 minutes home.
That was nice.
My first New York Film Festival was a very interesting experience.
I was like, damn, I dragged Liz out here for this.
And I can't wait to go back, everyone.
I do it all again.
I could
inject cinema into my veins.
Well, hopefully somebody laughed at this story.
Yeah.
Maybe Tyler's watching it or still listening and he's laughing.
Our significant others are definitely the only, maybe.
Or my mom. My mom's definitely
Yeah, you got to throw the moms in there. Yeah, you got to give them. So that's our story. That's our story of The Killer 2. That's our review.
Yes.
Liz, do you have anything else you'd like to add about more train problems?
No more train problems. Make sure to check out The Killer on Netflix. After you watch it, let us know what you think. If you like the ending more than we did, argue with us on it. Let me know why. Give me the receipts.
Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you can hear about more train stories whenever you want, because that's what's going to happen in our film festivals from now on. So be sure to like and subscribe. We love talking about trains here. We love talking about movies occasionally. So that's all for us, guys. And we are going to talk about David Fincher when he makes his next film. So that's it.
So signing off really quickly. I am Liz Seiko.
And I'm Zach Miller. Have a good one.